Motivation is often treated as the magic fuel that drives success, the invisible fire that pushes people to wake up early, train harder, study longer, and never give up. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like the waves of the ocean. One day it is high, and you feel unstoppable. The next day it is gone, and you find yourself searching for excuses. If you depend only on motivation to carry you forward, you will find yourself stuck, inconsistent, and weak. The reality is, motivation will not save you when challenges come. It cannot be trusted because it is born from emotion, and emotions change. When people begin a new journey, whether it is starting a business, learning a new skill, going to the gym, or even changing a habit, they often start with an abundance of motivation. At that moment, they feel inspired. They watch a powerful video, hear an emotional story, or imagine a better future for themselves, and the fire inside burns strong. They tell themselves, "This time I will not quit." But as days pass, the emotion that fueled their motivation begins to fade. Reality shows its weight. Fatigue sets in, distractions appear, the excitement disappears, and all that is left is the uncomfortable work. It is in those moments that motivation proves how fragile it really is. It cannot stand the test of time because it was never built for endurance. It was built only to ignite a start. What actually creates results is consistency. To be consistent means to do what is required whether you feel like it or not. It is the art of moving forward even when the emotional spark is missing. And to achieve this state, you cannot depend on motivation. You must force yourself. You must rely on discipline, on habit, on a deep sense of commitment to the life you want. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are not the ones who were always motivated. They are the ones who built a system around their lives that forced them to remain consistent regardless of feelings. Consider an athlete training for a world championship. On the first few days of training, motivation is there. The dream of holding a trophy or standing on a podium is strong enough to fuel them. But after weeks of early mornings, strict diets, and painful workouts, motivation fades. They wake up and feel tired. They think about quitting. Their body aches. In those moments, it is not motivation that saves them. It is discipline. It is the habit they have built that forces them to wake up and move even when their mind screams for rest. The athlete knows that if they rely on motivation alone, they will never survive the demands of preparation. It is the consistency built through daily discipline that carries them across the finish line. The same truth applies in ordinary life. Imagine a student preparing for a final exam. In the beginning, they feel motivated to study. They buy notebooks, highlight important points, and sit with excitement to learn. But after a few days, the excitement disappears. The chapters seem endless. The effort feels heavy. If this student waits for motivation to return, they will waste days, maybe weeks, and they will not be ready when the exam arrives. But if they understand that motivation will not save them, they will force themselves to sit down, open the book, and study even when every part of them wants to relax. By doing so, they create a habit of learning that eventually leads to mastery. This truth becomes even clearer when you look at how the human mind works. Motivation is connected to emotion, and emotion is unstable. It is influenced by sleep, diet, weather, environment, and even the behavior of people around you. One harsh word from someone, one small failure, one bad day, and your motivation can vanish. If you depend on it, your progress will vanish too. But when you are committed to consistency, when you force yourself to act regardless of mood, you remove the power of these small influences. You do not let your progress depend on fragile emotions. You let it depend on unshakable discipline. A short but powerful example can illustrate this. Imagine two friends decide to start running every morning to get fit. On the first day, both are excited. They set their alarms, put on their shoes, and run with energy. On the second day, it rains lightly. One friend says, "I don't feel motivated to run in the rain. Let's skip it." The other friend replies, "It doesn't matter if I feel motivated or not. I will run." After a few weeks, the first friend runs only when the weather is nice and their mood is good. The second friend runs every day, no matter the conditions. At the end of 3 months, the difference is obvious. One has barely improved, while the other has transformed their body and mind. What made the difference? It was not motivation. Both started with it, both lost it. The difference was that one relied on motivation, while the other relied on consistency. The second friend understood that motivation would not save them, so they forced themselves to act. This is why people who accomplish great things often appear almost mechanical in their habits. They wake up at the same time, they train at the same time, they work on their goals at the same time every day without waiting for inspiration. To the outside world, it may look boring, even robotic, but what looks robotic is in fact freedom, because they are not slaves to fleeting motivation. They are in control. They know that progress does not come from occasional bursts of effort, but from repeated actions over long periods of time. Motivation is useful only as a beginning. It is the spark that lights the fire. But you cannot build your life on sparks. You must build it on firewood, on something that burns steadily. That firewood is consistency. The most successful people are not the most motivated. They are the most consistent. They force themselves to work when tired, to study when distracted, to train when sore, to practice when bored. They know that their future depends not on what they feel in the moment, but on what they repeatedly do over time. So when you find yourself waiting for motivation, remind yourself motivation will not save you. It will leave you in the middle of the journey. It will abandon you when things get hard. But if you force yourself to be consistent, you will not need motivation. You will create habits so strong that they carry you even through storms. And when others quit, you will still be standing, because you chose the path of discipline, not the weakness of moods. When people dream of success, they often imagine one big action, one sudden breakthrough, one moment of glory that changes everything. They think success comes from giant leaps. But in reality, greatness is almost never built in a single day. It is built through small efforts, repeated day after day, until they transform into something powerful. The truth is that small efforts may feel invisible in the moment, but over time they accumulate. They gather weight, they compound, and they create unstoppable strength. Consistency in small actions is what separates those who wish from those who achieve. Think about the way a drop of water falls on a stone. One drop makes no difference. 10 drops make no difference. But after months, after years, those tiny drops carve holes in the rock itself. The stone, which looks so strong and unbreakable, eventually bends to the persistence of small, repeated effort. That is the nature of progress. It does not arrive all at once. It arrives quietly, silently, almost unnoticed, until one day the results are undeniable. The problem many people face is that they underestimate the power of the small. They believe that unless they do something massive, it won't matter. If they cannot run 10 kilometers today, they won't run at all. If they cannot study for 5 hours, they won't open the book. If they cannot save a huge amount of money, they won't save even a small coin. But this mindset kills growth, because the real secret is not in doing everything at once. It is in starting small and repeating it. Every small effort matters because it builds momentum. And momentum, when protected, grows into mastery. Let's take a clear example. Imagine someone who wants to learn to play the guitar. On the first day, they practice for 15 minutes. The progress feels almost invisible. Their fingers hurt, the sound is clumsy, and they wonder if it's even worth it. If they stop there, they will never improve. But if they continue with just 15 minutes every day, something begins to happen. After a week, the fingers adapt. After a month, the chords start to sound clear. After a year, that same 15 minutes per day turns into over 90 hours of practice. Without even noticing, they have developed skill. The person who practices once in a while for 3 hours out of motivation will never reach the same level as the one who practices a little every day. This is the hidden power of repetition. Small efforts work because of the principle of compounding. Just like money saved regularly grows with interest, actions repeated regularly multiply in effect. A single workout may not change your body, but 300 workouts in a year will. One page of reading may not make you wise, but one page every day for a year is 365 pages. That's a full book. 10 years of that habit makes it hundreds of books. Small efforts seem too tiny to matter in the present, but when multiplied by time, they create transformation. Another powerful aspect of small, repeated efforts is that they train the mind as much as the body. Every time you do something, no matter how small, you are teaching yourself discipline. You are proving to your brain that you can keep a promise to yourself. This builds trust within. And once you start trusting yourself, you gain strength to take on even bigger challenges. The power does not only come from the action itself, it comes from the character you are building through repetition. Consider the story of a man who wanted to lose weight. At first, the idea of running 5 kilometers felt impossible. He was out of shape, tired, and discouraged. Instead of giving up, he made a small rule. Every morning he would put on his running shoes and step outside, even if he only walked for 5 minutes. Some days he ran, some days he walked, but he never broke the habit of stepping outside. After months, those 5 minutes naturally grew into longer runs. His stamina improved, his body changed. He didn't start with great strength, but the small daily effort created power that he didn't know he had. This example shows another hidden truth. Small efforts lower the resistance to action. When you aim too high, the mind creates fear. The goal feels overwhelming and you postpone it. But when the effort is small, your mind accepts it. You tell yourself, I can do this for just a few minutes. Once you start, the energy builds, and often you do much more than you planned. In this way, small efforts trick the brain into starting, and starting is always the hardest part. People admire the end results of champions, artists, and leaders, but they rarely see the years of small, invisible efforts behind them. A martial artist does not become a master by training hard once. They become a master by practicing the same movements thousands of times, perfecting them little by little. A writer does not finish a book by writing everything in one night. They write a few pages consistently until the story is complete. A musician does not perform perfectly on stage by accident. They spend years repeating scales, notes, and patterns until their hands and mind move as one. What looks like talent is often nothing more than the result of small, repeated effort over time. The danger is that because small efforts don't bring instant results, many people quit too early. They want to see change in days, not years. They want the body, the skill, the money, the wisdom, all immediately. When it doesn't happen, they call it useless. But those who understand the power of small, repeated efforts keep going even when they see no immediate reward. They trust the process. They believe in the compounding effect. And eventually, they arrive at a place where their progress seems sudden to others, but in reality, it was years of invisible consistency. Let's bring this lesson into another clear example. Imagine a person who decides to read just 10 pages of a book every night before sleeping. 10 pages seems like nothing. It takes maybe 20 minutes. After one night, there is no difference. After 1 week, still no big change. But after 1 year, they have read around 600 pages, about 12 books. After 10 years, that's 120 books. Without ever sitting down to read for hours, without ever forcing huge sacrifices, they quietly transformed into a knowledgeable, wise person. Meanwhile, someone who waits for the perfect time to read or tries to read in long, rare sessions will never achieve the same depth. The secret was simply small efforts, repeated daily. The lesson is clear: do not underestimate the little actions. Do not despise the small beginnings. Power is not found in doing something once with intensity, but in doing it consistently with patience. The small effort may look weak today, but in time it will grow into a strength that surprises you and everyone around you. If you want to change your life, start small. Do something every single day that takes you closer to your goal. Write 1 paragraph, save 1 coin, walk 1 kilometer, do 1 push-up, study 1 page. These actions may seem insignificant, but repeated daily they will build momentum, and momentum creates transformation. Over time, you will look back and realize that what once felt small has become great power. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. Most people spend their days running from it, avoiding it, numbing it, and hiding from anything that might cause discomfort. They believe that pain is their enemy, something to be eliminated at all costs. But the truth is the complete opposite. Pain is not your enemy, it is your greatest teacher. It is the gatekeeper that stands between you and your progress. If you refuse to face it, you remain weak. If you accept it, endure it, and learn from it, you grow stronger than you ever imagined. Every meaningful achievement in life requires passing through pain. Think about the process of building a stronger body. If you lift weights, your muscles tear slightly under the stress. That tearing is painful, but it is also the signal that your body is adapting, rebuilding, and becoming stronger. Without that pain, there is no growth. The same is true for the mind. When you study hard, when you stretch your attention to absorb something difficult, your brain resists. It feels uncomfortable, even exhausting. But that discomfort is proof that your brain is working beyond its comfort zone. Without that struggle, you never gain wisdom. Pain, in both body and mind, is the signal that you are moving into new territory. People who avoid pain also avoid progress. They stay inside the walls of comfort, and in doing so, they remain the same year after year. They tell themselves they want success, but the moment pain appears, they retreat. They give up the workout when it burns. They stop the practice when it gets frustrating. They abandon the project when it feels overwhelming. They think they are escaping suffering, but what they are really doing is trading short-term relief for long-term weakness. Because comfort never builds strength. Comfort only maintains what already exists. Progress demands discomfort. Pain is also the most honest mirror you will ever face. It shows you your limits, your weaknesses, your fears. When you hit pain, you learn who you really are. Do you push forward? Do you quit? Do you make excuses? Do you freeze? Pain exposes your character in ways comfort never can. And once you see your true self in the reflection of pain, you have a choice: remain as you are, or use that truth to grow. Let's take a simple but powerful example. Imagine someone who decides to start running. On the first day, they are excited. The first few minutes feel easy. Then the breathing becomes heavy, the legs burn, and the chest tightens. Pain arrives. At that exact moment, there are two paths. One path is to stop and say, "This is too hard, running isn't for me." The other path is to endure, even if it means slowing down, even if every step feels like fire. If the runner chooses the second path and repeats the choice day after day, their body adapts. What once caused unbearable pain eventually becomes manageable, and soon what was once impossible becomes natural. The runner grows stronger not because the path became easier, but because they learned to endure the pain that was once unbearable. The gatekeeper tested them, and they passed through. This example is not just about running. It is about every area of life. If you want to build a career, you will face the pain of long hours, rejection, failure, and stress. If you want to build meaningful relationships, you will face the pain of vulnerability, honesty, and conflict. If you want to build financial freedom, you will face the pain of sacrifice, discipline, and patience. Every meaningful reward in life has a gate, and pain is standing in front of it. There is no way around it. You must go through. The beauty of pain is that it never lies. When you experience it, you know you are being tested. You know you are on the edge of growth. People often say they want change, but when change demands sacrifice and discomfort, they hesitate. They forget that pain is not a punishment. It is proof. It is proof that you are moving, proof that you are growing, proof that you are alive and not stagnant. Pain is the signal that you are stepping outside your old self and into a stronger version of you. Consider a blacksmith forging a sword. The metal must be heated until it glows, beaten with force, and cooled again and again. The process is violent, and it looks painful for the steel. But without that heat and pressure, the sword remains weak and fragile. In the same way, your character, your skills, and your strength must be tested through fire. Pain is that fire. It tempers you, shapes you, and removes your weakness. The process may feel brutal, but the result is unbreakable. One of the greatest shifts in life comes when you stop asking, "How do I avoid pain?" and instead ask, "What is this pain teaching me?" Suddenly, pain becomes a guide. The burn in your muscles teaches you that you are getting stronger. The frustration in learning teaches you that your mind is expanding. The sting of failure teaches you resilience, creativity, and humility. Pain becomes less of a punishment and more of a signal, pointing you directly toward where you need to grow. The people who achieve mastery in any field are those who have built a relationship with pain. They do not run from it, they work with it. They expect it. They even welcome it, because they know that beyond pain is progress. A martial artist expects sore muscles, bruises, and exhaustion. An entrepreneur expects failures, sleepless nights, and rejection. A student expects confusion, mistakes, and frustration. They all understand that these struggles are not signs to quit. They are signs that they are exactly where they need to be. Now, returning to the example of the runner, imagine that the person kept running despite the pain. Weeks pass and their endurance grows. They run further and faster. Soon, they look back and realize something amazing: the same pain that once felt unbearable has now become normal. What once was a barrier has now become a memory. This is the secret of pain. It transforms. The pain you feel today becomes the strength you hold tomorrow. The weight that crushes you today is the weight that builds your muscle tomorrow. Pain is temporary, but the growth it gives you is permanent. So the next time you face pain, whether in the gym, at work, in your studies, or in your personal life, do not immediately retreat. Pause and recognize what is happening. Pain is the gatekeeper of progress. It is standing at the door of the life you want, testing how much you are willing to sacrifice to step through. If you walk away, you stay where you are. If you face it, endure it, and move through it, you earn the right to grow. The truth is simple: pain will either break you or build you. The choice is yours. If you accept it, pain becomes the teacher that forges your character, your strength, and your destiny. If you reject it, pain becomes the chain that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. Every great achievement in history was born from someone willing to walk through pain. And if you want to achieve something great in your own life, you must be willing to do the same. One of the most powerful but often overlooked aspects of consistency is the way it builds trust with yourself. Most people think of consistency only in terms of results. If you exercise every day, you get stronger. If you study every day, you get smarter. If you work every day, you build your career. These are all true. But there is a deeper truth hidden underneath. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. And this relationship is the foundation of your confidence, your self-respect, and your ability to achieve anything meaningful in life. Think about it this way: when you make a promise to someone else and you keep it, that person begins to trust you. Over time, if you repeatedly follow through, their trust in you grows stronger. If you break your promises, their trust disappears. The exact same thing happens inside your own mind. When you tell yourself, "I will wake up early," "I will exercise," or "I will study tonight," and then you actually do it, your brain records that action. It sees proof that your word can be trusted. But when you break those promises, when you say you will do something, and then fail to follow through, you are sending yourself a dangerous message that your word is meaningless. Slowly, your mind learns not to believe in you. And once you stop believing in yourself, your confidence is destroyed. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. It is not about how much you do in a single burst of effort. It is about whether you can do what you said you would do, day after day. Even small actions, when done consistently, carry enormous weight because they are evidence that you are reliable. You become your own proof. You stop needing constant external validation because you have internal trust that comes from keeping your word. The tragedy is that many people treat their commitments to themselves as optional. If they make a promise to someone else, they feel guilty breaking it. But if they make a promise to themselves, they excuse it with words like, "I'll start tomorrow," "It doesn't matter this time," or "I'm too tired." Over time, this habit erodes their self-trust. They begin to doubt their ability to change. They feel weak not because they lack potential, but because deep inside, they no longer trust themselves to follow through. The real damage is not the missed workout or the skipped study session. It is the broken trust that accumulates every time they walk away from their own word. Consistency rebuilds that trust one action at a time. Every time you do what you said you would, you deposit strength into the bank of your mind. At first, the deposits are small. You may not feel different after one act of discipline. But as you repeat it daily, the trust grows. You start to believe, "If I say it, I will do it." This belief is life-changing because it gives you confidence that no matter how big the challenge, you can rely on yourself to face it. That confidence is not given by anyone else. It is earned by your own consistency. A short example will make this clear. Imagine a person named Arif who has been struggling with fitness for years. Every January, he promises himself that he will lose weight. He joins the gym, buys new shoes, and feels motivated. But after a few weeks, he quits. He tells himself the same story every year, and every year he breaks his own word. Over time, Arif begins to joke with his friends that he is lazy or incapable of change. Deep down, he has lost trust in himself. One year, Arif decides to change his approach. Instead of making a huge promise, he makes a small one. He will walk for 10 minutes every single day, no matter what. It sounds almost too easy, but he keeps his word. 10 minutes every day. At first, nothing dramatic happens. But after a few weeks, he begins to notice something. His trust in himself is coming back. He told himself he would do it, and he actually did it. That feeling of self-trust motivates him more than the walk itself. After 2 months, he increases the walk to 20 minutes. Then he begins light jogging. Months later, he is running regularly, eating healthier, and losing weight. The transformation is not only physical, it is mental. The biggest victory is that Arif once again trusts his own word. He knows now that when he says he will do something, he will follow through. That trust is what keeps him consistent long after motivation fades. This story shows how consistency is not just about results. It is about identity. Every time you are consistent, you are telling yourself, I am the kind of person who does what they say. That belief shapes your entire life. It influences the way you work, the way you handle relationships, the way you approach challenges. People who trust themselves are not afraid of big goals because they know they can rely on their own discipline. People who do not trust themselves hesitate, procrastinate, and sabotage their own progress. Not because they are incapable, but because they don't believe their own promises anymore. When you are consistent, you also build a foundation of peace inside. There is no constant inner conflict, no endless guilt or regret. You don't need to argue with yourself about whether you will take action. You simply do it, because that is who you are. That inner alignment creates clarity and strength. Instead of wasting energy fighting against your own broken promises, you use that energy to move forward. The key is to understand that trust is not built in one moment. Just like in any relationship, it is built through repeated actions over time. You do not need to be perfect. You will stumble, you will miss a day, you will face setbacks. But if your pattern is consistency, if your overall rhythm is to keep showing up, the trust remains strong. What matters is not avoiding every failure, but proving that you always return, that you always keep trying. That is what convinces your mind that you can be relied upon. So if you want to build confidence, stop looking for it in temporary motivation, external praise, or lucky breaks. Look for it in your own actions. Look for it in the small, daily promises you keep to yourself. Start small if you need to, but start. Make a commitment and prove to yourself, over and over, that you are trustworthy. In time, this self-trust will become unshakable, and with it, you will gain the courage and strength to face anything. The truth is that every goal, every dream, and every change begins with a promise to yourself. If you cannot trust that promise, nothing will last. But if you build consistency, you build trust. And once you trust yourself, there is nothing you cannot accomplish. Most people believe freedom comes from doing whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. They imagine freedom as waking up without a plan, following impulses, avoiding discipline, and chasing comfort. But this idea of freedom is a trap. In reality, it does not create freedom, it creates chains. When you live only by impulse, you become a prisoner to moods, cravings, and distractions. Real freedom comes from consistency. When you are consistent, you gain control over your mind, your body, and your life. And that control is the foundation of true freedom. Consistency looks like restriction to outsiders. It looks like rules, routines, and structure. But beneath that structure lies strength. Imagine someone who consistently trains their body. To others, it may look like a rigid schedule of workouts, discipline in diet, and endless effort. But what they have earned is freedom. The freedom to move, to feel strong, to avoid the suffering of sickness and weakness. On the other hand, someone who avoids the structure of consistent training may feel free in the moment, but over time, they lose freedom. They become limited by fatigue, pain, and disease. Their lack of consistency in caring for themselves robs them of the very freedom they thought they were protecting. Consistency is freedom because it frees you from dependence on motivation. If you only act when you feel motivated, your life will always be unpredictable. Some days you will move forward, most days you will fall behind. You will never know when or if progress will happen. But if you are consistent, you no longer wait for feelings to dictate your actions. You create a rhythm so strong that it becomes automatic. You don't need to argue with yourself about whether you will act. You simply act. This removes the exhausting battle with procrastination and indecision. Instead of being a slave to fleeting emotions, you are free to live by choice. Another reason consistency is freedom is because it builds mastery. Freedom in any area of life comes from skill and competence. A musician is free to play beautifully because they practiced consistently. A writer is free to express ideas with power because they wrote consistently. A fighter is free to respond instinctively in the ring because they trained consistently. Without that repetition, there is no mastery, and without mastery, there is no freedom. You become trapped by your own limitations. Consistency removes those limits by giving you control over your abilities. Think about money as another example. Many people believe financial freedom means spending however they want, but if they live without consistency in saving or investing, they eventually find themselves trapped by debt, stress, and lack of options. True financial freedom comes from the consistent discipline of budgeting, saving, and growing resources over time. What looked like sacrifice in the short term becomes independence in the long term. Once again, consistency, not impulse, creates freedom. There is also a psychological freedom that consistency provides. When you are inconsistent, you constantly live with guilt and regret. You promise yourself to wake up early but hit snooze. You plan to study but waste hours scrolling through distractions. You want to eat healthy but give in to cravings. Each broken promise adds weight to your mind, and you begin to feel powerless. You feel trapped in your own cycle of weakness. But when you are consistent, you live with peace. There is no internal argument every day about whether you will act. You already know the answer. You will do what you committed to doing. That inner clarity removes stress and creates freedom of mind. A simple but powerful example of this truth can be seen in a man who decides to write a book. At first, he feels excited. He writes a few pages with energy, but then he stops, waiting for the perfect mood or the perfect inspiration. Weeks pass, then months. He feels guilty every time he thinks about the unfinished project, and the weight of that guilt grows heavier. His inconsistency has taken away his freedom. He cannot relax fully because the unfinished promise follows him everywhere. Now imagine the same man takes a different approach. He decides to write just one page every day, no matter what. Some days the writing flows, some days it feels forced, but he keeps the habit. Slowly, the pages pile up. After a year, he has a completed book, and more than the book itself, he has gained freedom. Freedom from regret, freedom from self-doubt, and freedom to create whenever he wants because his consistency built the habit of discipline. This example shows how consistency liberates you from the prison of someday. Many people live in that prison. They say, someday I'll get fit. Someday I'll start a business. Someday I'll change my life. But someday never comes because they never build consistency today. As a result, they remain stuck, chained by their own delays. The only way out of that prison is to build consistent action now. Each consistent step is a key that unlocks a door to greater freedom in the future. Consistency is also freedom because it gives you options. A person who consistently saves money has the freedom to travel, invest, or handle emergencies without panic. A person who consistently learns new skills has the freedom to adapt to new opportunities. A person who consistently trains their body has the freedom to enjoy life fully, without being held back by physical limits. In every area, consistency creates possibilities, while inconsistency closes them. The irony is that people who avoid consistency because they think it restricts them are the ones who end up the most restricted. The person who skips exercise feels free in the moment, but loses health later. The person who avoids study feels free today, but loses career choices tomorrow. The person who spends recklessly feels free while shopping, but loses financial freedom later. Short-term escape creates long-term prison. Short-term discipline creates long-term freedom. Consistency also gives you freedom from fear. When you know you have been consistent, you face challenges with confidence. A student who has studied consistently does not fear exams. An athlete who has trained consistently does not fear competition. A speaker who has practiced consistently does not fear the stage. Fear comes from unpreparedness, and unpreparedness comes from inconsistency. By staying consistent, you replace fear with freedom. The freedom to face challenges without panic, because you know you are ready. In the end, freedom is not the absence of discipline. Freedom is the result of discipline, repeated over time. It is not about doing whatever you want in the moment. It is about creating a life where you are not controlled by weakness, laziness, or regret. Consistency builds that life step by step. It may feel restrictive when you start, but eventually, it liberates you in ways you could never imagine. The truth is simple: inconsistency is prison, consistency is freedom. Every time you choose consistency, you are breaking free from the chains of procrastination, fear, and regret. Every time you keep showing up, you are building a future where you are in control. It may not feel glamorous, and it may not feel easy, but it is the path to true independence. If you want freedom in your health, your mind, your finances, or your spirit, do not chase impulses. Build consistency. Because once you are consistent, you will no longer be ruled by circumstances. You will rule yourself. And that is the highest form of freedom any human being can have.